Since we continue our working day, and now we will speak about operational information and status security in Ukraine and OSCE activity. We will have Alexander Hack, Deputy Monitor Mission Head of OSCE. The briefing will be in English. If you need interpretation, you can take the headset on the table at the end of the hall.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us at the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center today for the regular briefing by the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine. Yesterday, I returned from Minsk along with the Chief Monitor. There, we attended the second meeting of the Security Working Group within the Trilateral Contact Group. The working group had productive and fruitful talks yesterday. As this process is still underway, however, I would not like to preempt any future steps. However, as the Chief Monitor has already publicly stated in Minsk, there is a sense that the sides are not far apart about what needs to be done about the de-escalation in Shirokine, and that returning calm to this Ukrainian village should not take long. Over the past week, the mission continued to monitor and report on the security situation in Ukraine. The Donbass remained unstable and unpredictable. The ceasefire didn't hold everywhere. As in previous weeks, the conflict was particularly pronounced in a number of places. Areas in and around the destroyed and now DPR-controlled Donetsk airport remained the focus of fighting throughout the week. The mission observed intense periods of violence followed by lower levels of fighting. However, the level of violence was considerably lower in that area than in previous weeks. The highest daily total recorded by the mission was 182 on 13th of May, 400 fewer than the previous week's comparable figures. The mission observed artillery, including mortars, tank, heavy machine gun fire, rifle and anti-aircraft guns, including the use of shrapnel-causing ammunition at the Donetsk airport in this week. The other major hotspot, areas in and around the village of Shirokine, remained relatively calm this week as compared with the previous week, when as many as 400 explosions were heard in one day alone. Speaking of Shirokine, as I said, the mission continues to work towards de-escalation in this Ukrainian village, which is just 20 kilometers eastwards from the strategic port city of Mariupol in the southern part of the Donetsk Oblast. Here we are talking about the two sides pulling away from each other to reduce tension, not to demilitarize, as some media have reported. Worrisome is that the geographical scope of the conflict seems to be spreading to such areas as the residential areas of Khorlivka in the government-controlled Luhansk, just north of Debaltseve. The mission revisited both government and non-government heavy weapon holding areas. In many of them, previously recorded weapons are now missing. Despite claims that withdrawal of heavy weapon was complete, the mission also observed movement or presence of weapons on both sides on the contact line. These are areas that are in violation of the Minsk withdrawal lines. The sides have initially not provided the baseline information on heavy weapons along the contact line. The mission still has to conclude that the sites have, at best, only partially complied with their Minsk obligations and commitments in this respect. On the topic of weapons, as many of you may have seen by now, the mission's unmanned aerial vehicle, the UAV, was able to detect recently the presence of an advanced surface-to-air rocket system, and in specific term, a 9K-35 Strela 10 system in rebel-controlled territory of Oktyabr, just 25 kilometers away from Mariupol. You may recall that last week we released a thematic report on the impact of the permit system instituted by the Ukrainian government on civilians in the conflict area. One resident of the so-called LPR-controlled village of Molodishne described how she was unable to access social services for her 10-year-old epileptic son in nearby government-controlled Popsana because of difficulties in getting crossing permits as required by the temporary order number 144. In that same village, our monitors have heard that more than 25 people have been living in the basement of an apartment block for the past 9 months on an on and off basis, depending on the level of violence in that area. This is a stark reminder of the unbearable humanitarian toll that civilians face in the conflict zone. According to the United Nations, as of 8th of May 2015, at least 6,254 people have been documented as killed and 15,696 as wounded in the conflict zone in eastern Ukraine. This includes 176 children who were killed and 68 children that had been wounded. Finally, as usual at this point, let me update you on our current mission strength. We now have 473 monitors in place, 57 other international staff, and 226 national staff. In addition, we have at the moment 5 monitors undergoing induction training. That brings us to a total of 756 staff members, which originate from 42 participating states of the OSCE. And with these numbers, I conclude my brief statement today. I am now available to questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are any questions or clarifications, please.
Captured soldiers in Ukraine, and have you met them? What are conditions for their presence here in Kiev? Thank you.
Indeed, we have been visiting 2 individuals at the military hospital here. The findings of this visit will be made available to the general public in our daily report that should be issued now or in the next few hours today. Thank you.
Can you confirm that those are soldiers of any size or not yet?
The findings of our encounter with these 2 individuals will be made available this afternoon in our public daily report that will be on our website available to the general public.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or clarifications? If no, thank you very much, Mr. Hook, and we'll be waiting for you next week with a report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Дякую. Наш наступний брифінг о...
Thank you. The next briefing comes at 2.